Welcome back to the Let's Glow Show. It's Amanda Sweet, the Creative Fairy Godmother, and I help people get fly, make friends, and save the world through community. And every single week, we jump on here and talk to a creative entrepreneur doing amazing things in their cities. And today is no different. We have an amazing human with us today. This will be our fourth gentleman on the show, so kudos to you. Welcome, Brian Sullivan Taylor.
Hello. That intro was amazing.
Thank you. You're amazing. So you have many, many hats. The founder of Detroit Drama Studio, acting coach, actor, entrepreneur, father, husband, all of the things. Tell us your go-to intro. When somebody's meeting you for the first time, what do you say? I do.
Well, I tell them again, my name is Brian Sullivan Taylor, and I am an actor who had a dream to be more than just an actor. I've been a professional actor since 2015. I started in the Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit. So shout out to Mosaic for cultivating my love for theater arts. And that grew past college. And I went out to LA in 2021 to work with a world-renowned acting coach by the name of Chubbuck, who is the creator of the Chubbuck technique, the power of the actor. And I got certified to be an acting coach by her, and became the only certified coach in the entire Midwestern region, certified to teach our acting technique, the power of the actor. And that pushed me to kind of, I don't want to say create, but rebrand. I started out coaching actors for free with the organization my sister started called the Detroit Actors Society back in 2015. And I never had any intention to be an acting coach whatsoever. It's kind of just like the path that life and my career took me on. And so I came back, rebranded myself as the Detroit Drama Studio, home of the Chubbuck technique. And that has blossomed into many other things. I became an adjunct professor because of it at the College for Creative Studies.
Really? Oh my gosh. Oh, so what are you teaching there? Obviously acting.
My technique. Yeah, I teach acting, but I teach my technique because they don't have a theater program there or really an acting program there.
Yeah.
It's an art and design school. So I teach one of two acting classes there, but I told them, like, if I come, I can't teach general acting. I got to teach what I know, and they allowed me to do it. So it's been a real blessing.
That's beautiful. So what differentiates your style? Like why this particular style? Why did you pick that program? Why?
Okay. Let me tell you why I picked that program, man. It's going to be a really interesting story. As you know, as artists, we go through these ebbs and flows of questioning whether this is the right path for us. You start looking at people your age who are buying homes, buying cars, doing adult things with their regular lives and regular jobs. And I was down. I was just going through a really down period. I have 2 degrees.
Really? In what?
Yeah. I have my bachelor's in communication and business, and then my master's degree is in communication theory. So I should have been doing something like PR or marketing or something like that, right?
You are. You are though.
Yeah, actually. All these skills are coming together to run a business. No, actually, that's true because I am my entire team. But I was having a bad night, Amanda, and I was drinking some Hennessy, and I was like, I gotta figure something out.
Always drink Hennessy when you know.
Exactly right. I was like, man, I had this book, this Powered Actor book by Chubbuck that Tasha Smith. If you've ever seen any of the Tyler Perry movies, Tasha Smith is really extra and loud, boisterous actress, and she brings all of herself to her work for real. But anyway, I went to her class. She said, you should really look into this technique, the Chubbuck technique. I was like, okay, well, if you think I'm good enough to do it, she was like, you were. You were very good in my class. Look into it. So I had this book for years, Amanda. And I'm sitting here. It was kind of like just a beacon, like in the movies when you like had this revelation. I looked at the book. And I said, I'm going to email Ivana Chubbuck. I'm going to find her email online randomly. I'm going to email her, just a shot in the dark. It was literally a Hennessy shot in the dark. I emailed her like late at night too, but you know, they're on West Coast time. So it was like 10 a.m. time, 10 p.m. her time, rather, 1 a.m. here. I emailed her, and like 20 minutes later, I get an email back. And I thought it was like a generated computer response because I just literally found this email online.
Right.
It was her. It was her old email, by the way. So if you try to email her online, nobody won't be able to contact her. that method won't work. But she said, I
Yeah.
gave her my story, told her where I was at in my life and my career. And lo and behold, as fate will have it, she said, I'm from Detroit too. I'm from the Southfield Royal Oak area. I said, there's no way. I said, there's no way. She was like, I want you to represent me in Detroit. And after an entire pandemic and a year saving up some money, I went out to LA, trained with Ivana, and the rest is history.
Holy cow, that's crazy. That's so dope. I love that for you. Like, what, like, that's magic. That's magic right there. Okay, so like, what makes this technique different than the regular? Because so for those of you that don't know, I met Brian when you just started. I didn't realize you had just started out. Like meeting you through your improv classes, I would have thought you've been doing acting theater for forever. But there was a time in my life when acting was my form of therapy, my form of creative identity. I've talked about it a little bit on the show, but right after I got out of my crazy situations, like, and I was down and out, I had dropped out of school, I dropped out of work, I was like doing nothing. And I was like at a loss for what I was going to do with my life. And I remember my parents asking me, like, what are you going to do next? And I was like, I'm taking an acting class. So I ended up taking an acting class at the Actors Loft in Royal Oak.
Yeah.
And I showed up, and we talked a little bit before about style and fashion. I started experimenting with my style when I would go to class and like who I was, who I wanted to become. And then I was like learning acting techniques to like actually, that are actually functional. And for me, it was like very therapeutic. So I was doing improv, I was going out to stuff. I was doing plays, I was doing theater, I was doing all of that stuff. And that's how I met you.
Yes,
and so I didn't know at that time that you had just started 2015, because I think that's when I was playing around in the sandbox. That feels like it felt like you were doing it for a lifetime. That's crazy.
Yeah, I guess it was in my spirit.
It was in your spirit. So for those of us that aren't familiar with acting or any other acting techniques, what makes Ivana's technique different? What sets it apart?
Okay, so like you said, there's plenty of techniques. There's Konstantin Stanislavski, there's Sanford Meisner, Uta Hagen, Stella Adler. Like the list goes on and on and on. Ivana's technique is special because it's called the power of the actor, and it's called the power of the actor because it's truly about the person who's doing the work and not the actor. So it's like there's a 12-step process. And that's what makes it really easy, because growing up, we learn things in processes, step 1, step 2, step 3. She literally broke it down in a 12-step process that takes you from your overall objective being the first step to the 12th step being called let it go. So once you've done all the work, you just let it go. And you just trust the work that you've done. But what makes it so special is that we do these deep dives into ourselves, and it's very introspective, and it teaches you to bring yourself fully to the work. And you learn that no matter what character you play, no matter if it's a serial killer, a comedian, a single mother, a dad, on some type of drug or something like that, all these people coexist inside of us already, just because from our human experiences. And it's just like, Amanda, you as a woman and me as a man, we obviously have different lives that we lead in this world because of the way the world looks at us. But if you're going through something and I'm going through something, I may have not gone through that exact experience, but I can relate to it from a human perspective. And that's what Ivana teaches us in her work, is how to put human empathy to all situations and make it real. So it's like it gets to a point where you're not acting anymore. And you've been in acting class and you felt it, when you've been truly in it, and I call it in it, and when you've been above it. And above it is like, I'm just saying the lines.
Yep. I'm doing a task, right?
Right. But in it is like where you're zoned out and you're like, for a second, I didn't realize where I was because I was just so in the moment. And that's I'm sorry. That's what makes the technique special to me. I'm not gonna say it's better than other techniques. I'm gonna say it just resonated with me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay, as a creative entrepreneur, what made you? I mean, you were saying you were kind of down and out. I guess let me reframe the question. As a creative individual, like to the other creative individuals that are watching and that are finding themselves in a situation where they're like, I feel at a loss. I don't know where to go next. Like, what do you tell people to look for? Because I know acting can be really challenging and there's a lot of like conceptions around it. Like there's a lot of conversations about fame and fortune and riches and competitiveness and, like, oh, so there's a lot of stipulations around the industry. So how do you help actors like keep going, maintain their business, because being an actor is a business. It's a career path that you want to take. So you have to operate like a business owner and a creative person. So how do you help people like break through some of those barriers?
I think especially when I meet people who are new to the business and new to the idea of acting, we all come in with the idea of fortune and fame. That's one of like the most upfront ideas you have when you begin acting. People lie about it, like, no, I've always been about the art, but that's just not true, because too many people, get into it and like, this is not for me. And I tell my new actors, like, you have to approach this not just like a dream, but like a job, like a very important job. And in a job, it's all about craft and it's all about skill set. And if you, as we all know, if you get good at your job, eventually the accolades and the elevation that you're searching for will come. But the downside of this job in particular is that you're going to hear a lot of no's more than you're going to hear a lot of yeses in this job. And it gets really discouraging. But you kind of, I heard this from another actor. This is not my individual words. But you kind of got to fall in love with the no's of this business. And I tell actors, like it's really, not to get morbid or down and out, but it's a dark and lonely path. It's a really, really dark and lonely path. And you have to know that coming in. They're like, this is probably going to be a journey that could take a year for some people, that could take 10 for others. And you could be really, 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 really good at it. But it's kind of one of those things where it's just a matter of time, that you just have to believe in yourself and keep going and keep getting better at it.
It's crazy because this is exactly how entrepreneurship sounds. This is exactly how I feel like any industry where you're taking a risk and you're going against the traditional norm of like even jumping ship from one career in a corporate role to another career in a corporate role could feel like this, especially if you're like, I know that I want to work for someone else, but I'm still trying to find my lane. But I feel like it's like this for everything. Like entrepreneurship, I hear this is the same conversation that I'm hearing in my entrepreneurship class that I'm taking right now. It's not an easy road. It's not made for everybody. You're going to hear a lot of no's. Like it's the same thing. It's just a different industry. So I feel like that loving the no's and like so somebody told me this, understanding that no is getting you closer to your next yes. So the more no's you get, the closer you'll get to a yes. So I've had a lot of people come to me about modeling in particular, just because I've done a lot more of that more publicly. And it's the same thing. I'm like, you can't approach modeling, acting, entrepreneurship, like it's just going to fall into your lap. You got to work. You got to find your niche. You got to find your thing. What are you good at? The only way to figure out what you're good at is to try a whole bunch of shit and be bad at stuff.
Yes.
Yes. Bad at it and then learn something new. Someone in my class yesterday was saying, like, how do I know if I'm putting out the right art materials? And I'm like, well, if you never put any of it out, you'll never learn what's right and what's wrong. Yeah. And it's way better to figure out what's wrong than not figure out anything at all. Yeah. Just to be like, well, I never put it out because I didn't know if it would go over well, or I didn't know, like, it's that same passion to be like, I'm passionate about figuring it out, about messing up or getting the no, like you said. So what is your experience as a professional actor? Like, you're doing a lot of stuff now. I'm sure it sounds like you've gone through a couple dark paths yourself, but like, how have you maintained your career? How have you found your like nooks and crannies through some of those challenging times?
I think as an artist, right, you start out and we all hear this voice in the back of our head. And to me, I feel like, especially when you're truly an artist, when you know it, when you know the universe is speaking to you in a particular direction, especially when doors open in a direction that you bravely go down, the path that you've been scared to do, but then doors start opening. I felt like I've always had this voice in my head to do this. So I was so focused on this and solely this that I was starting to miss out on other things. I'll make this all make sense. It's going to be very philosophical in a second. I was starting to miss out on other things. So I was like, I only have to do acting. Like, I can't do anything else. It's been a point of contention between me and my wife for a long time before I started the studio. I was like, if I take my attention off of acting, it won't happen. I can't do anything else. And eventually, life, God, and the universe said, in order to maintain this acting vision you have, you're going to have to find another way to sustain yourself. Like, you're gonna have to do something else to expand your territory. So I've done I've done financial sales, I've done retail sales, I've done technology sales, and I've done real estate sales. I mean, people with our personality, they always stick us in sales jobs anyway. And the beauty, to piggyback, actually, to circle back to what you said last about how I've maintained myself, this idea of understanding the no's so that you can strategically learn how to get to the yeses. Sales taught me all of that. And I didn't even realize how much it was going to benefit my acting career, because when I'm trying to sell somebody on something, no one way works all the time with every customer. And you got some days where you just having like a great sales day, and then the next day can be nothing. And you're like, I was using this yesterday, why didn't it work? And so with a combination of, I substitute taught too, with a combination of keeping random actor life jobs. When you're an artist, I mean, that's just what it is. Like, it's going to be really hard to maintain a regular job and commit to the
commitment. Yeah. And it's cheaper to shoot during the week. So it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And so I've been fortunate enough, and I mean, quite honestly, it doesn't hurt having a spouse with a regular job, a regular income. But I've been fortunate enough to have little jobs in between, but the studio is what really saved me. Because I fully invested into the studio. Like, I put all my time, energy, and love into the teaching of others. And I was like, wow, I found something that I really enjoy. I get to be around the thing that I enjoy, and I get to share it with others. And I think as long as you're doing something, I think as long as you're enriching the lives of others and charging them for it, because you have to pay for information, you too as well can find your sustainability.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I mean, there's a couple topics that I want to talk about, but like, it's the figuring out what's not working and the experimentation of trying all these jobs that are in alignment with the career that you want to go into. And I did the same thing. I've done so much random jobs. I've been everything under the sun. And now I find myself in a role. And the reason I took the role that I'm in right now as a community director is because, like, I want to have my own building. That is the plan. I want to have my own community where I'm building community, and I'm doing the sales, and I'm doing the peopling and the strategic stuff and the visioning stuff and the impact work. And I was like, I could go to school and learn how to do this. That was the thought. I was gonna just like go back to school when I moved back here, because before this job I was working as an event coordinator for a publication. I learned a lot there too. I learned how to do like corporate events at like large scale, like 300, 500 people, which is an amazing skill to have and to get paid for it. But I was like, I'll just go back to school. I'll just get my MBA, or I'll do this, I'll do that. And I found this job position that was like exactly what I was looking to do, but I was going to get paid for it. So I was like, let me just see if I'm capable of doing it. And instead of paying someone else for it, like paying for tuition, let me see what it's going to take to do it and get paid for it. But it took a long, windy road to get to this particular position, just because I've had to be so many people, which is now why I can do so many of these criteria to be this person. But now this job that was a windy road to find, is now setting me up for success to start my business. And I feel like you found yourself in a space where you were able to make your business your craft. So yes, you're teaching, but every single week you're practicing your craft too. You know, you're in it. You're doing those things that fuel you. So you are acting every week, and you're also teaching, and you're getting paid for it. So that's beautiful. And I had a conversation with LeBrie, my husband, about something similar. When I was pregnant, we were like, we're gonna have to figure out how to make more money so we could buy a house, you know, and we kind of sped up our timeline a lot. And he's like, I don't know, I don't have the mental space to get a second job. I can't, you know, and I was like, but you could sell your art.
Yeah.
And there was like a moment where he like first took offense. He was like, damn, you just want me to get a second job, make more money, you know? But then he's like, oh, I could just sell my art. I could sell my craft. I could work on my craft and turn it into a revenue generating thing that sustains us and fulfills me. Yes. That's the dream, right? So I think those are all great examples of, as a creative entrepreneur, if you can find yourself in positions that will pay you to do what you're good at and not just be like, okay, I'm just going to work at the bar, you know, which is doable too. But that's the dream. That's the goal. Find a job that is in alignment.
And can I say this? Because you sparked two things. About it was some really important shit you said. This is my BT1 note of the day. Sorry for cursing. But like you said, you thought about how you could go get an MBA, or you could go get a job, you know, as a community director and learn these things. And I think something so important for not just artists, but for anybody watching this show. I call this my BT1 though. You know, everybody calls me BT1. That's my friends call me. So you're my friend. Everybody who's watching is. But sometimes you gotta give yourself your own internship, and you gotta work it. You gotta work it. You gotta decide, like, I know what I want to do. I know this career, like you said, aligns with my vision and my craft and my passion for myself. I don't give a damn what anybody else thinks about it. I'm gonna go get this job. You know, a lot of times outside noise, and it's crazy. It's always the people who honestly love you the most who will be your largest detractors because they think they're helping you by telling you don't do this. And you're like, no, I gotta go give myself my own internship because I'm gonna figure out how to hustle this and do what I have to do. And when I was doing these random jobs, I didn't know. I'm not gonna lie to you and say I 100% wholly knew what they were for. But every time I got in one, I was like, this is going to benefit me somehow. And not in terms of a career path or whatever the hell I was doing. But I knew somehow it was going to help me. And when I was substitute teaching, I started substitute teaching at the same time I started Detroit Actors Society. Okay. And I took it because I started substitute teaching only because, one, I was trying to leave my retail job. But two, I was like, if I'm going to teach people, I need to actually learn how to teach. And you talk about working your craft, and literally the reason I was doing Detroit Actors Society for free is because as an artist, you know, we try to be as moral as possible, at least responsible ones. I didn't feel like I knew how to do it well enough. You said what?
I said it's a little irresponsible though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, oh yeah, it's definitely a little irresponsible. It's a gamble for sure. But I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. So I was like, when I go to LA, I'm learning. So when I come back home to Detroit, people know that I got certified to do this. Not only in a technique, but I got certified to teach you and train you on how to be a better actor and a better person.
Yep.
I'm off my soapbox. It's my BT1 for the day.
No, I love that. I think I'm a huge proponent of that. Like the same thing with the family. My mom was always like, why are you doing all this stuff for free? You're never going to get paid. You're never, you know, and she was speaking out of fear for me because she loved me and cared for me. She wasn't speaking negativity in me because she wanted me to fail. She wanted to protect me. That was the reality. She was trying to protect her child from going down a path that was uncertain, you know, because she sees me acting and modeling and doing improv and like hosting events and doing all, and she's like, what the heck are you doing? Like, I don't understand it. You're not making any money. You're spending all your money, all your time, all your energy. You dropped out of school, you know? So she's like looking at me thinking that I'm like going down a deep, dark path of unsuccess is what she's thinking. But all of that stuff was beneficial, every single piece of it. And I think it's also the perspective of seeing as everything as an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
That's most important. Like, I feel like if both mine and your perspective was, damn, until I get to the end of this job, then I'm gonna make it. Then it like, this perspective of like, just wait until I, that. But we were like, we're gonna learn from this. This is valuable. This is gonna add something to my life. I'm going to meet someone. I'm gonna expand my network. I'm gonna learn a new skill. That perspective is what leads to doors opening.
Yes.
Every opportunity, every experience that you have, no matter what it is an opportunity.
Yes.
If you look at it that way, or it's the opposite. A lot of people, and I've been talking about this a lot just because it's my most present experience, but I just had a miscarriage in February, and everybody's like, oh, and obviously it sucks. But in my brain, the way my brain is working, it's like, leverage, use this, take this opportunity, take this as a chance to share a story, to connect with people, to grow, to learn, to follow the path that I was going down before, but faster, Yes. So everything is an opportunity. Everything's a learning opportunity, but it's got to be in the mind. You got to train your brain to think that way. Like if I got into a car accident right before I had this job, and I remember thinking like, what am I learning from this? That was the first thing that I was thinking. I was like, what am I learning from this? I shouldn't be running late I should be getting up earlier, so I'm not rushing and distracted driving and trying to so it's all about that perspective and training your brain.
It's the growth mindset that you have to have.
Yes.
The glass half full versus half empty. It was like, and they say we're like pipe dreamers and out there and over optimists, but it's like, no, it's like your mind will shift and change the universe around you if you believe it.
I 100% believe that. And I also 100% believe that anybody is capable of becoming this way. Because I was not this way. Like if you would have met me when I was like 11, 12, 13, like very angsty age, but also like just like a very pessimistic view of the world. I hated myself. I hated everybody. Everybody was problematic. I was this victim. And like going into my 20s, like teens, 20s, the world was terrible. Everybody was terrible. The universe was out to get me. And that is what I experienced. I experienced that every step of the way. Like, all of this trauma.
Yeah.
And I feel like acting for me was a way for me to understand that brains are trainable and like your activity is trainable and it's malleable, like you can change it. It's not static. And so that for me, like once I found acting, I learned about the law of attraction. I learned about like spirituality in a way that's like very internal and not, I grew up religious, but that was the first time like when I learned about acting that I could find spirit within me, and I get to build within me and we get to build our world, and what we put out there is what we get back. So if I'm putting out hate, anger, angst, what am I going to get? So I wholly believe in that. I love that you feel that way. What do you see when it comes to like the acting community? Like when it comes to perspectives, what are you seeing scratch that question. We're just vibing here. What do you see in the Detroit acting community, just at large? Are there opportunities here? How do you find them? How do you make sure that you're like in alignment with your business and the opportunities? Tell us a little bit about the Detroit acting landscape.
Right now, I see that we are in a big, like a Motown era. We're like in a Motown era, early Motown, when things were just like when you could literally walk up to the house on Grand Boulevard and just say, "I'm here to audition." Like, can I get a shot? And I think I'm gonna go deep on this one. So we see a lot of things. Everybody knows about Tubi, right? We see a lot of things on Tubi, and some of the stuff is really, really good. Some of the stuff is really, really bad.
Yeah.
But it's all independent filmmakers. And Detroit is like the largest hub for Tubi right now. Like all the I want to say, I don't know the exact number. I want to say like at least 80% of the independent
Wow.
work is coming from Detroit. You know, when you turn on Tubi and you see the movies, and people are like, oh, these Tubi actors or Tubi yada yada, Tubi directors, whatever. These are all independent artists who are taking a chance on very small budgets to try to tell a story. Some of those stories can be told better. Some of them are already good. They just need better production and whatnot. But anyway, I think a lot of actors have this vision. A lot of artists in general have this vision of how we see our careers going. And it's going to be like this. And if it comes like this, I'm not going to take it because I see it like this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talent in Detroit, actually, because we're just a talented place. Like Detroit has a long history of immense talent. I don't know what it is in our water, particularly.
It's in the air.
But it's in the air. It's
Yeah.
like in the air. And it's crazy because you got New York over here, Chicago over there. You try to forget like Detroit is right here, but that's a whole other story. But anyway.
Well, anyway.
We have a lot of talent, but I don't think people, because we're not like a theater town. We're not like a Chicago or New York where actors believe in like training and learning the craft. Like if you didn't go to school, if you didn't go to actual theater school, you got to figure out like, okay, how can I get better? Because I can't just walk on a set anywhere and think I'm gonna get booked for something just because I'm
cute.
Up on set.
I feel the request. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think with our booming industry in terms of film, I'll talk about theater in a second, but in terms of film, especially independent film, because our lovely former governor who poisoned the water in Flint, he killed all of our tax incentives. So we don't have the film tax incentives like we would love to have. But I think in terms of independent film, actors need to start training so that they can make our independent films be better so that we get more exposure, because it's a community thing. It's like if we're all good, we can all win. But I think if you're an actor right now, it's a great time to be an actor in Detroit because there's so many independent projects. And then independent is the thing. Like you go on YouTube, like not Tubi, but YouTube, like everything. You're like what we're doing right now, independent content creation. I mean, we all have phones. Like you can do this from anywhere. It's a great time to be an actor here. In terms of the theater community, the theater is a little bit more challenging to get into. But there are multiple ways to do it. It's a little harder, but it's a lot of great theater actors here too. Like we're in a really great time right now.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I see it because like when I was doing it, which I always feel like I want to get back into it, but it's the time commitment. And I know that the time commitment is important to put into the craft because it takes training and coaching and time to experiment and explore. But there's so much to do. And the independent, there's going to be a moment where I think we're seeing it right now. I deleted my TikTok, but on TikTok, you see it. I feel like it'll trickle down to Instagram very soon. But like celebrity status, high budget films, all of that stuff is like, they're crumbling. It's crumbling. Yeah. All of the shadows are starting to show. All of the bad attitudes, ethics, morals, all of that stuff is showing itself. And Hollywood is shaking. There was like a big thing on TikTok when what was the big show that just happened? The Met Gala. When the Met Gala happened. And like everybody's saying like cancel all these celebrities, everybody unfollow, block, mute all of them because they're making money off of us from the follows, from the likes, from the shares, all of that stuff. And so there's going to be a point in our media experience that independent is going to take over big corporate.
Yeah.
And so we just have to prepare ourselves for that time. So like you're saying, now is the time. Now is the time to train. Now is the time to experiment, to explore. And when I tell you, being on an independent film set, the amount of stuff that you learn, like from the second you get there, you're learning. From before you even get there, you're learning. So just doing it is like taking a class, but also you should be taking a class so that when you show up, you're ready for your scene. Because as a professional, I say this to models all the time. They're like, well, photographers will just like pick me and shoot with me. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that, because your job as the model is to get the most shots in the shortest amount of time. And the only way you can do that is if you're good in front of the camera. How do you get good in front of the camera? You got to practice. How do you do that? You got to pay people to shoot you.
Exactly.
You got to get in front of the camera, because if you get on there and it's your first time on set and you clam up and you can't perform, then now you're wasting studio time, photographer time, designer time. You're wasting people's time by not being able to get the shot immediately.
Yes.
So I know as a model, I am successful when we're on set for 5 minutes and like, we got it. That's a win for everybody. That everything else is icing on top of the cake. Like, yes. But that comes from years of practice, experience, money. I'm constantly investing money into my craft. I'm never just expecting it to come. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Can I take this jacket off?
Yeah, do whatever feels comfortable. Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good. You got to get comfy. You got to be comfy.
Oops. All right.
Yay.
I'm better now.
So let's talk a little bit about like paying for your craft and learning, because as a teacher, you obviously see that perspective, but it seems like you've always understood the value of training for your craft. What are you seeing? What is out there? What's possible? How can we get better at our crafts?
So are you saying aside from training, how we can get better at our crafts?
I don't know. Let's just open it up to see where it goes. Yeah, maybe outside of training, just based on what you're seeing. Because you're like, I'm seeing stuff that's going out. We could use more training. Like, how else can we get it if we're not making any money from our acting?
Look, I'm looking at my wife in the background in the yard. I have to tell her to move. Sorry.
Hey. Actually, because this feels a little bit. I want to change it now that your wife was in view and my husband passed. What is it like being a creative and being married and being, tell me about your experience with that and how are you navigating through that experience? Because it seems like you and your wife really enjoy each other and love each other so much. Like, how do you maintain a happy home and a happy creative career?
It's tough. If I'm being totally, it's rough. Well, because you have two people with kind of, two different personalities, right? And it's crazy how opposites truly do attract, because my wife, she values the arts, but she's not like, she's not whimsical. And like I said, like we are not open to things, right?
Like,
she's very black
and white. There's usually there's the string and the kite.
Yeah, exactly.
They need each other.
Exactly. I'm the kite, she's the string, like for sure. Yeah. But one, because my schedule fluctuates a lot. So it's like not having that. We have two small children. Well, my son's 11, my daughter's 5. But because my schedule fluctuates, it's always, I gotta do this, at some random time, and she's like, what? You gotta do what? No, the kids have this. Like, I'm not taking them, you're taking them. And so being able to try my best to find a balance and trying to accommodate her, honestly, into my lifestyle, because our lifestyle is up and down. It's not consistent. We pray that one day it gets consistent, but even when it does get consistent, as we know at the next level, it's still it's more crazy. So trying to manage being a great husband and a great father, but also being a great actor and a great coach, it's rough mentally and emotionally, because you always, at least with me, I always feel like I'm lacking in something. I always feel like there's something that I'm not taking into account. Like tomorrow, my little girl, she graduates from elementary school, as you see her. I don't know. Everybody's walking around the camera. She graduates from a preschool.
They're welcome. Everybody's welcome.
All right. She graduates, and I have a class tomorrow. So right now, actually, while we're in the midst of it, I'm like, oh my God, how could I forget that I have Elliot's graduation and I got class and I got to figure that thing out. She doesn't feel like I'm missing out on her because, being around in your kids' lives is important, but also being around for your spouse, as you know, is equally important because they start to feel left out and like they're not the focus. So, it's a daily struggle that I'm trying to get better at, Amanda, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, it seems from the outside that you're doing a really good job. Everybody seems well rested. You always seem like super positive and optimistic. And, I think it's important to just have those conversations. Like yesterday, I had to do the hard thing of setting a hard boundary with someone that I really care about. Mm-hmm. I joined a board, even though I knew that it wasn't good for me because I was already kind of like at my bandwidth. And I said yes. I did all the paperwork. And the second I said yes, and the second I started doing the paperwork, I could feel like my heart and my chest kind of like beating out of it. And I was like, maybe this was a bad idea. Like maybe I'm like doing too much now. Maybe this is, and the reason my anniversary was last week, and we had the week before, we had this like heart to heart. And he was like, I understand that you have a big vision. I understand that it's going to require all of these things for you to execute that big vision. And I fully 100% support it. And I also understand that means sometimes when you come home, you don't have any time left for me. And he's like, I'm not mad about that. And for me, I was like, that's how you feel? This is how you're feeling right now? I didn't know that's how he was feeling. And that was like a huge indicator to me that like, not only was my body telling me that I was doing too much, but also now my partner's telling me, in his way, even though he was saying he was okay with it. And so yesterday I reached out to the board and I said, I'm resigning, even though I signed a 3-year contract with them. But I was like, I can't commit to this. And the board meeting is tonight, the first one I was supposed to go to. And there was a moment in my mind where I was like, if I don't say no now, I'm stuck for the next 3 years. If I go in to this meeting, I'm sending a message. I'm going to be here for the next 3 years and they're going to tell me a whole bunch of stuff, you know? So I had to like get over the fear of being uncomfortable for 5 minutes to then relieve myself for the rest of the summer, for the next 3 years, so that I could have my Wednesdays back with my husband, or with myself, so that I can be present for my husband, and be a part of participating in my craft at the same time. So it was like, that was a big one for me. And not only was it big, but I started listening to a book just so that I could do that. It's called Better Boundaries, Finding Boundaries, Finding Peace. Somebody on the show actually told me about it, but I've been listening to it for the last several days and I've set so many boundaries. I was like, boundary. And my husband's like, you seem really happy today. And I'm like, I am. And
what's the name of that book?
I'll tell you right now. And she's got multiple books about boundary setting. Her name is Nedra Glover Tawwab. Set boundaries and find peace. A guide to reclaiming yourself.
And you found that on Audible?
It's on Audible, yeah. I think I can't remember who told me, but it was definitely on the Let's Glow show. Nedra Glover Tawwab about this book, and she's got one about setting boundaries within your family. She's got like a whole family one, and I'm only like 3 hours in, and I'm like,
it's bought.
I'm like, I'm already seeing the world in a different way, and I'm like, wow, the reason I'm tired is not because I'm doing too much; it's because my boundaries are blurred. That's the problem. That is my problem right now. So that's what I'm working on, because I'm like, no, I want to be able to do my craft fully. I want to be present when I'm here fully. I want to be a great wife. I want to eventually be a great mother. Like, I want to do all of these things, but if I can't comfortably say no, then I'm going to be burnt out, and I don't want to do that.
And man, I think I'm not just going to regulate this to artists, but I'm just going to talk about it from an artist perspective.
Yeah.
As artists, we want to give ourselves away naturally. Like, we want to give the world us in full and entirety and be as naked and vulnerable as possible, because we know great art comes from openness and, unlimitless boundaries, right? And then the idea of a boundary for an artist is oxymoronic. It's like, no, I live beyond boundaries. Like, there are no walls for me. But it's like, you forget and you feel bad when you restrict and you create boundaries because you're like, I don't want people to think I'm mean. I don't want to be, no, I want to try to do this and do this and this and
She
this.
literally talks about that. She said,
Yeah.
if you think setting boundaries is mean, you are making assumptions of what other people feel and find mean. So now you're assuming that they're going to find you setting a boundary as mean, and you're making decisions for them, unbeknownst to them.
See?
So it's like, I was like, because I do that all the time. Like, are they going to think I'm mean? Am I going to be mean by doing? I literally was thinking about that, about not being on the board. I'm like, I care for this person that invited me to be in it. I care for their program. I care for what they're doing. But if I say no, is that mean? Are they going to think I'm mean? And literally the conversation was so beautiful. She was like, I 100% understand. I am so proud of you for telling me. Like, all of this, like, I was like, oh, this was so much better. But I needed to say yes and push my own boundaries to a point of like that, to that point, so that I could realize that my boundaries are being blurred and it's my fault.
Yeah. And a lot of times it is our fault that we get mad and we're like passive aggressive, like people are treating me like anything. It's like, no, because you don't have good boundaries.
Exactly. And so like I realized, and this is to the like the point we made earlier, I see the value in me saying yes and screwing up and pushing myself past my limit, because now I saw where the limit was.
Yeah.
And I have found now new resources to avoid that limit.
Yes.
And had I not said yes and pushed myself too far, I probably would be doing it in another way.
Yes.
So I'm realizing that there's the lesson in there is I get to say no, and I'm not mean for doing it. I think I'm more terrible for the relationship as a whole to say yes when you don't want to, because then you show up the way you don't want to.
Yes. Yeah.
Crazy. But with the artists too, it's the same thing. It's like I went through a phase where any request that was made of me, like volunteer for this, free opportunity, free, I did all of it because I was like, this is going to benefit me. And then there's a point where you're like, I can't do any more free.
And that's where the line gets blurred, because this is what people don't understand about what we do, especially when you're starting out. One, you have to take what Charlemagne the God calls in his book Black Privilege. You don't always take the free lunch. He calls it the free lunch because the free lunch comes with expectations attached that you didn't really agree to. But it's like when you're starting out, it's hard not to take the free lunch because you need the reps, you need the opportunity, you need the exposure, you need the network. But then I think a lot of artists get kind of messed up, or creatives get messed up, because like you said, they don't know when to cut that boundary off and be like, okay, now I'm at a point where you got to pay me for this to stress me out this much. Like if I gotta feel this in my chest, if I gotta get anxiety behind this, then it's time for me to start getting paid for it. You know?
Exactly. So that rule is in the 48 laws of power as well. That lunch is never free, ever, ever. But I do think, like, as somebody that's a creative that also creates platforms for creatives, I'm in an interesting position because I don't have any extra money right now to pay people. The goal is to make money so that I could pay people, but I got to make money first. So that's what I'm learning how to do. And I always feel it in my chest too when I'm like, for the revamp, specifically the revamp clothing swap festivals that I do, we've been struggling to break even, but I know that I see the vision of when that will happen. I see the next one, and now that I have extra time.
Sorry, my dog is barking at me.
Oh, it's okay. Now that I have extra time, I'm like, okay, I can develop a sponsorship package. And literally in this conversation, like, it came to my mind. I'm like, I need to have an artist sponsorship that specifically pays our artists to come and perform for us. And I need to have a sponsorship that pay, and so, like, while I know better than to just ask people to do stuff for free constantly, I'm trying to do better. And I also realize that because I'm not paying them, what can I give them in return? And I'm always thinking about that. I'm like, I can feed them. Feeding them costs me money.
Yes.
But I what I don't want to do is say, come do this thing for free, and you're not going to get water. You got to bring your own food. You got to bring your own chair. You got to bring your own tape. I've been there many times. in our city, when people are like, you got to come to this many rehearsals, you got to be here. If you're late, you're going to get, and it's like, okay, but I got to bring my own chair. I got to bring my own table. I got to do my own hair and makeup, and you're not feeding me, and I can't leave for 4 hours.
And this is all for free?
For free. And I've been a part, and this is part of the reason why I don't do runway anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's like, not only that, but then like, there's so much, it's just, I'm like, this is just unethical and immoral. Yeah. And there's been situations where we're in that setup, and you have to sell 20 tickets at $100 each. That is the requirement.
Yeah, you know? And you have to do the selling of the tickets. It's like, where's the common sense in all this?
Yeah, and if you don't, you get a penalty and all this stuff. So it's like, wow, you're like not only putting me to work, but like, what do I get opportunity? What is the opportunity? The opportunity is to learn that this is not the place for me, you know, or to give the feedback, or to say, you know, and I know that I'm guilty of like ghosting in situations like that, like as a younger version of me, like, screw it, I'm just never gonna do that again.
I ain't going.
Exactly. But I think now, as someone who's producing events, like I'm very overly aware of what I'm not providing, which is pay. So I know this. And I'm like, and when I have my brand ambassador sign the contract, so we have contracts because we're also taking pictures. So it's a photo video release form, but it's also like, here's what I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you 2 meals. There's going to be 2 events. Here's the call time. Here's the end time. Here's what else you get. And I'm overly sharing. I'm like, you're going to get this, and this. There's no money, but here's what I'm going to give you.
But here, exactly. That just makes sense. What's that? Can you hear my dog?
Like this much. It sounds like he's just out.
Hold on, guys.
It's not problematic.
There he is. He's crazy.
Puppy.
Sorry.
You're good.
You have.
It's no. One of our friends, Pam, her little boy was not happy about our interview, but it was fun. It's reality. The reality is we have multiple things happening all the time. We're multidimensional. It's just the way of the world.
My cameraman behind the set right now. You should see everybody. They're all here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're already at an hour. That happened so fast. I know. I told you. It goes by so fast. We got 5 more minutes. Okay, so before we end, what's your last like little tidbit? Like, what do you want to make sure that you say before we go?
I want to say that, and now this is strictly reserved for anybody with a dream and a vision. It's if you have a dream and you have a vision, you're probably of a small percentage of people who are brave enough to dream and vision beyond the norm and the standards. But whatever dream we have, if someone has done it already, then that means you can do it too. But you can't be discouraged by the path and the journey that it takes to get there. A lot of us are so focused on the destination that we see the path as an impediment or as a means to say, like, you shouldn't do this because the path is harder or longer than it took for somebody else. But you have to, I think Kobe Bryant said this. I could totally be making this shit up. You have to fall in love with the practice in order to play the game. You know, like in practice, and this is like a metaphor, obviously, for, I believe, training in whatever craft that you do. You have to fall in love with the practice in order to really get to the game. And it's going to be hard and it's going to be dark. And you're not the only artist or creator that's struggling. Like somebody else said this. I'm just stealing a bunch of quotes and shit.
That's fine.
But when we go to Instagram, we all post our highlights. We do that because the idea is to show you what I'm doing and the greatness of it and how good I can be. And one day when I get there, but nobody is posting the downtrodden times, the stressful times, the times where you're like, man, forget this shit. I'm not doing it. Like, forget it. Like, I'm just going to go to the regular job and just fall in line with everybody else because this is just too hard. But you can't think that way. You got to think that you are a dog. That's why I call my when I'm in class, I tell my actors this is dog training because I'm creating dogs. I'm creating dogs. So I tell them like dog training is hard, it's tedious, it's rough. But if you want to be that dog, if you are who you really think you are, then we got to grind this out and don't get discouraged and know that like I said, if one person did it, you can do it too. But the shit ain't gonna be easy.
Right. But that doesn't mean it's gonna be hard either.
Yeah, that's true too. That don't mean it's gonna be hard too.
It's perspective.
Yeah.
It's mentality. It's like it's how you're showing up. And I feel like what I'm learning, I'm in retail boot camp at Tech Town right now. It's 20 extra hours of work a week on top of the 40 plus the business that I'm running, plus the, plus the family, the chores, the stuff. And what I'm learning from going through this, because the work is hard. Like the work that we have to execute is challenging. It's all the work that I don't feel like doing, which is why I haven't done it yet, because it's hard. It's financial, it's legal, it's all of that stuff. But what I'm learning is how to stretch my bandwidth. I'm working on a muscle that I never knew was possible to do in a healthy way, And so like, I figured out what the limit was. I pulled back on it, but I'm like every single week, I'm putting in 20 extra hours of homework. And so once I'm done with this course, I'm going to have the bandwidth for 20 extra hours of work that I've never had before because I've been practicing every single week for 12 weeks, and that's what I didn't realize I was doing. And I think I see a lot of your actors, they show up every single week or every other week, whenever they have the classes, they're excited, they're ready. And I remember sometimes I'll see them at the beginning and when you first start and they're like, like nervous or whatever, but then now they're all like super comfortable. But it's like, the more you practice, the more you show up for that for yourself, because practice is showing up for yourself and for your craft, the more you realize you are capable of doing it. And in the class I'm taking right now, every single class we have, I'm like, I don't know any of this. Like every class I go to, I'm like, here's more stuff to make me feel how much I don't know. And how much harder this is going to be than I think it's going to be. But I keep showing up. Because I'm like, well, somebody else did it. And I think that all the time, like they did it, and Labrie says this all the time. And this is not to be rude to anybody. He's like, dumber people with less means have done it before.
For real. It's a fact. It's just a fact. So it's a fact.
I'm like, how? But it's the pursuing of it anyway, doing it anyway, showing up anyway, and then hiring people to do the stuff that you don't know how to do, like a coach.
And can I say something to that point?
Please,
because it's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's a factual statement that dumber people do exist. There are dumber people and there are smarter people. It's a fact. And dumber people are dumb enough to believe. You see, being smart, that's where you get in a trap. Because smart people, we start thinking about details and ratios and what's the percentages of people who made it. All this goofy shit. Dumb people are like, man, I don't give a damn about that. Like, I'm gonna do it however I get to it. And we see it every day on TV. Multi-millionaires who are brave, who are dumb enough to do it.
And doing it anyway. Yeah, I think that's big. That's huge. You can't smart yourself into not doing your dream. Exactly. You can't learn yourself. Like you can definitely. And that's what I'm finding is like every single week I'm telling myself like, even though now I know that there's more stuff that I don't know, doesn't mean I'm not the right person to do this. It just might take a little longer and it might take more capital. Exactly. But every single week I'm finding myself like fighting with my brain saying, go anyway, show up anyway, do the homework anyway, do it anyway. But there's a part of my brain that's like, we're not cut out for this. And another part of my brain that's like, yeah, you are. Just do it. Just show up. Crazy. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to know you, to see you thriving, to see you from those acting classes. We were in hospital. We were at Henry Ford Hospital. Was that where we were?
We were at the car center. I got this picture of us. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna post it. This picture we took like in 2015. I'm gonna find it and post it.
Heck yeah. So it's been a long journey. It's been beautiful to see you develop your business and develop your craft and get out there and getting these gigs that are amazing and beautiful. And I wish you so much more success. I wish you like 10 times over, 20 times over that. And next year when we're having a recap conversation, you're gonna be like, yes, so I have all of these territories and I've done all these films and I'm making all this money. It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
I love it. So tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram on 2 pages. You can find me personally at Brian Sullivan Taylor on Instagram. Follow me because I really got to get to 10,000 followers for these new agents. It's a whole other game. And then you can also follow my studio at Detroit Drama Studio on Instagram, DetroitDramaStudio.com on the internet. And I can also be found this summer very soon. New show, new independent series, prequel show called McGraw Ave H Block, produced right here at home in Detroit with a lot of Detroit-based actors, coming later this summer on Amazon Prime. So that was a really fun project for me. Shout out to my films over there. So yeah,
that's so exciting. And if people are in the audience and they're wondering, like, when is the right time to reach out? What kind of industry, like, who usually comes to your classes? Like, what kind of people, where are they at in their industry? Just so we know.
I'm glad you did that. I'm so glad. So I teach 2 classes in particular. I teach my master's class. These are seasoned actors. Some of them are actually new, but they're familiar with the Chubbuck technique. And that class is literally for serious actors who are pursuing an acting career. That's not a class for like, I'm trying it out. It's a hobby. That's not for you. I also have a small group coaching class. Both of my classes are held at the beautiful location of Bamboo Royal Oak. I have a small group class on Friday nights for new and seasoned actors who are new to the technique. And if you're a new actor just want to try something out, perfect class for you. It's a little slower paced, but the work is still rigorous. But yeah, was that the question?
Yeah, exactly. That you answered it perfectly. I love it. Amazing, Brian. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much. This was beautiful, as I knew it would be. And thank you all for joining us on the Let's Glow Show. Again, we got the revamp coming up in September. We're locking in a venue, a special announcement. And if you're watching, you get the sneak preview because I'm not about to launch this on Instagram for another couple of weeks. But the revamp has been accepted into the Detroit Month of Design program. So we are going to amplify the work that we've been doing with the Detroit Month of Design. So we're finding a venue in Detroit. We got something cooking. But if you're interested in being a revamp brand ambassador, applications are open now and we'll be shooting in July. So hit us up at therevamp.co. Otherwise, we'll see you next week with another creative entrepreneur. My name is Amanda Sweet. I am the Creative Fairy Godmother, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.